Wait, hold up. With the devastation of California, with all the earthquakes, with all the recent wildfires that have spread through the city, is this God's wrath? Is God showing his wrath on the state of California? Miss Celestia, back with another prophecy.
And God says that they have a certain lifestyle that they enjoy in California, and they do not see the shaking of the ground or the warning tremors or even the warning that a massive earthquake could come. They don't perceive it as a judgment. If you know that there is a judgment coming, it is an automatic next step that once you perceive something as a judgment, to avoid that judgment, you will change course. You will change conduct. And the way we change conduct for sin in Christianity is that we must confess and repent of the sin. We must take ownership, first of all, of the accusation that is brought against us by a holy God who's not picking on anyone. It is impossible for God to pick on anyone because God knows the hearts of all living. If God says you're guilty of something as a person, as a family, as a nation, absolutely 100% you're guilty of it. You have absolutely nothing to say in return. But where judgments are being pronounced and the people are fighting against it and saying, is there any other good news? Do you only prophesy wickedness? Can you stop speaking evil? I rebuke this prophecy. It's a wicked prophecy and things like that. Well, then there's a great difficulty in that situation. And so he says the people refuse to change. They behave as if life will never change. They behave as if their lives will never ever be subject to natural forces that they can't deal with. So then comes in also the matter of, it doesn't matter what we get hit with. We've got the National Guard and we've got FEMA, the emergency response arm of the United States, the federal, we've got the federal. It's not just going to be at the state level. We'll have state response. We'll have state troopers. We'll be keeping the peace. We'll have floodlights, but we'll also have the government coming in at the federal level. And so with that kind of ability, God says that the emergency he's going to send to California will be beyond anything that they can ever take care of. And then he says, from that point on, forever. Now, America is not going to last forever. I already said that this nation is going to be completely destroyed by fire, by nukes, by wars, by enslavement, by a crushed economy, by many things, by creatures, and also by the fact that it will get shaken by God to the point that the whole continent will fall into the sea and sink to the bottom of the sea, never to be seen again. So obviously it's not going to last forever. But he's talking about forever into the foreseeable future. What he says, life in the west coast of America will never be the same again. So it's not just California that's going to be affected. Whoever lives is going to flee. And the fact that people are hearing these warnings and then they just sit and say, oh, what can I do? I live in California. And so, like I said, if you don't think that God is serious, then obviously you will not change conduct. You will not begin to pray to say, God, obviously I'm sitting in a disaster area. I've already heard that the area is judged. What more do I need to then approach you to ask you to help me to relocate with my family or whatever? Some of you, the first battle is that your family doesn't even believe you, so you're not going anywhere unless you leave them behind. That's the first big battle you have to overcome. God, how do I deal with the hard hearts of my family? But people are not doing this. People don't seem concerned about this. People don't seem to be moved. People just want to do this. I'll just sit with my hands and say, what do you recommend? Why are you asking me? Why are you asking me what I recommend? Don't you have a Bible to know what people should do when judgment is pronounced? If you hear judgment is definitely coming to an area, why do you need a recommendation to know what to do? Obviously, you should move from there. That's the only obvious thing to do. The process of that, the procedure for how to do that, is then dependent on how much you are trusting God and involving him in your day-to-day life that has been going on uninterrupted until you heard this message. God has borne with the nation of America, and in fact all the nations and all the peoples in the nations for very long. But we have finally come to the point where, because of the time structure and because of the return of Jesus Christ, which has already kicked into motion, the earth will no longer be allowed to hide or cover sin, immorality, transgression, or outright rebellion against God. And as God was telling me that he will visit people in fire and with fire, to be visited in fire is a lot better, because when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were put into the fire, God was with them in that fire. God came to them in their extreme moment of distress, a moment that came upon them to take their lives. The Lord turned it around and made it a glorious miracle that was one of the building blocks in the heart of wicked Nebuchadnezzar, who continually acted like he didn't see God when Daniel and people like Meshach and the rest of them were right in his face, modeling proof that God is a living God, that God was there and ruling with his people. And so to be visited by God in fire is better, because the fire of God, for instance, that is here at the Master's Voice, is the thing that sets many people who are going astray back on track. When the fire of God that is in this ministry impacts you, you sit and you think about your whole life. You think about the whole 50 years that you've been alive. You ask yourself, what have I been doing? Many people are practicing just a straw Christianity. And so when the fire of God in this ministry comes, it burns it up. And some people get offended, which is the wrong response. You can't be offended that you have built a straw house, a wood house. If you had built something with gold and silver, it would remain. Even if you built something in brass, it would remain. But if you have built a straw Christianity, a wood Christianity, and the mere preaching of a human being can burn it up, how will you stand before the everlasting Lord when you stand before him who has been described by John the Revelator as all fire? What will you do? The man who is fire from the waist up and fire from the waist down. How will you stand before him if you cannot even stand before earthly preaching? What will you do when you stand at the judgment throne of Christ? And so God was saying that he will come to them in fire, and then he was saying he will come to them with fire. When God comes to you with fire, that part is definitely a hot judgment that not everybody gets to walk away from. There are people who have been judged by God in the fury of God, and all they are now is a footnote in history. The only people who remember them are their family and friends, and sometimes not even that. Another thing that happened is when the Lord was telling me this, he gave me my own warning, which you will now hear. The Lord gave me my own warning about how he will judge me, and you will understand from this, or perhaps you will just act deaf and you will not, but you will understand from this my approach, which God gave me from the beginning, even before this prophecy. He will always give me reminders, and here is just one of the many reminders I get from God. I have sent you to speak to these people, to warn them of a great evil that I intend against them. I have told you to speak all the words that I will give you, and indeed you will speak them. There is a reckoning coming for every person that will determine their placement with me. But before I judge them, I will check to see, did you tell them all the words of my mouth, or did you leave any out? I will determine this first before I judge them. And if you told them, they will bear the full penalty for their sin. But if I find that you did not tell the full matter as I said, but have kept back any part of it for fear of them, the judgment will be on you and not them. And so there are those who come here and they complain that the prophecies are too graphic, and this makes no sense to the thinking adult, because the rapes that are happening out there are graphic. Someone is experiencing that rape in real time. And while I am not there personally, if the Lord comes and says, the wicked of the nations do this and that upon the woman, who exactly are you to tell me to what point I should speak what God says? What placement do you have in this earth if I am standing between you in your finite representation as dust and God, who has no parents and no birthday and no death day? Who are you to tell me to what level of explicitness, so-called explicitness, I should give the prophecies of God? If the small 4-year-old child is being violated, and I am describing that I see elites gathered around the children, putting them on white cloths, so that as they violate the children in their backsides, the blood from that encounter falls on the white cloths, and then the elites take the white cloths and go away with it as trophies, as mementos. Who are you to tell me that something that happened in HD IMAX horror to the child, an explicit deed happened to the child? Who are you to say that you're too good to hear it? Even the child's parents, when they get back their damaged child, if indeed they are so lucky, even the child's parent is eaten up with questions. until that baby can finally articulate, because he grows from age 5 to age 6, age 7, and then he is able to give speech to the damage. So in this country, social workers go to work and they develop the same iron soul that I have. They can hear what is happening in the homes of America, but the complacent, chipmunk-cheeked, overweight Church of America is so pristine and their robes so white that they don't need to know the details. They don't need to know the details of the human sacrifices taking place under their feet while they're spending money on junk at Walmart. They don't need to know the details about what the people they love. He's a good man. The people they love in the political spheres, the people they love in the movie world, the people they love in the music world. They don't need to know what those people do. And the reason that you don't want to know is because you don't want to have utopia shattered for you. How dare anyone tell you that America is not as peaceful and beautiful as you want to believe it is? How dare anyone drag you from your seat of Pharaoh, where you can survey your domain and say it's a great country. It's a great country here. Because once you find out that they eat children here, that thing tends to color away the greatness and it makes you upset. That's why you rage against the Most High, but you will not be successful in it. When God chooses someone and he intends to get the fullness of his investment out of that person will be put through their paces in such a way that that person becomes almost like a trusted guide dog that is so highly trained. Guide dogs, police dogs, they are so highly trained that at the sight of their masters, they go into readiness position. Only if the master says, okay, stand down, mascot, stand down, Ted, then the dog is relaxed and the dog is happy. But at the sight of the master, a dog knows, there's my blind master. I've been trained that my master can't see. And so those kinds of dogs are not playful. When people are out with seeing guide dogs, the owner always asks, please don't touch the dog. Please don't feed the dog. Please don't pet the dog. Why is that? They don't want the dog to be moved out of their training. But the church globally, worldwide, for the most part, has been trained by Satan. The church has also been trained by jesters and clowns and very, very slick wizards in the pulpit that have trained the church to see a God who has no wrath. They train the church to believe in a God who has no anger, to the point that the church, when you tell them that God is angry, they are shocked and offended, because what right has God to be angry? What is God angry about? And the reason that many people even genuinely have that shock is because that they don't know that there's anything going on for God to be mad about. It's the first they've heard that God is mad. But some of us, it's not the first that we've heard that God is mad. Some of us have been hearing God for years and years and years. In my case, before 2012, when God started speaking a particular stream of prophecy to me, God would always tell me and show me how people do not satisfy him, because people always want to give the most compromised version of Christianity to God. The cheapest thing that people have available, the cheapest amount of respect. They will respect the mayor of their city before they respect God. If the mayor says this and God says this in a prophecy, they'll go with what the mayor says. If the president says this and God says this in a prophecy, they'll say, no, but C-SPAN said this. I don't trust this prophetic word. Who's this person giving this prophetic word? God has trained me. And when you are trained, you look at your master. You don't look at the people around you. The landscape blurs to the back. So now, here are some of the names again. God says that a man who turned his entire family over for fame and for ascension is Will Smith. He said that Will Smith turned even his children over, even his wife. And look at who they are today. These are the Lord's words. These are not Celestial's words saying, look at who they are today, because it's not my business. It is God saying, even the children were turned over for this ritual. Look at who they are today. So if you want to know who they are today, Will Smith's daughter is very male, very macho. Will Smith's son is barely in his right mind half the time. Young Jaden, and he's openly gay. God says Charlize Theron, Sandra Bullock, and others like them are people who transgender their children as a way of making sacrifice to the gods. that control Hollywood. So another person who has done this is the basketball player Dwayne Wade. His child is out and proud with a brand new name and dresses. And God says they sell flesh in that place. It is a flesh market. You need to know these things, Celestial. And I put it to the watchers of the Master's Voice that we need to know these things together. People who have been sodomized on tape, meaning there is video of it. People who have done these rituals for their career include Kevin Hart, that he has done it with several different men, Britney Spears, Madonna, members of boy bands like NSYNC. Two people that the Lord named were J.C. Chavez and Justin Timberlake. Backstreet Boys, he didn't name any of their names. He just said Backstreet Boys. He said multiple black boy bands. He said especially where these boy bands started when the children were very young when they started out. So this is where you're talking about a group of about 4 or 5 boys. They come out with an album of about 6 or 7 songs, and all the little teen girls are crazy about them. And God says that people don't know what the business executives have done to these little boys before they get their record contract, or sometimes they sign you to trap you, and then they bring these offers of you having to do oral sex with the executives. They do it to you, or if the child is very young, they will do it to the child instead of having the child do it to them. The Lord said that the Jacksons were subject to this. It was this ongoing abuse that made Michael Jackson the tortured soul. These are God's words. He said the ongoing abuse shattered his entire persona and made him the tortured person that everyone was familiar with growing up. Michael Jackson sacrificed people for fame, and that is why no one should listen to or follow or buy his music. And this one, I think the Lord told me this about 8 years ago, that no one should follow this man, love this man, idolize this man, because this man actually participated in human sacrifice. And it was quite a shock to know. Said that Michael Jackson's concert in Bucharest contained human sacrifice. He made sacrifices of blood to get to where he was, and many of them do this for rapid acceleration into fame. Do not have anything to do with those who sacrifice people. So again, we go back to Beyonce. The Lord says that she is, as I said, involved in dark magic, deep witchcraft, that she is what they call the occultic whore. So like I said, this is a woman who on one hand holds very high spiritual power, but at the same hand is used as a sexual toy or object as part of rituals that sometimes she might be in control of. So she might engage with one man, multiple men knowingly, or will just be used as a conduit to draw and bring in the power. And so God says that the studio executives have greatly enjoyed themselves over the years. And the kick for them is because, I use quote fingers, she's the most famous woman in the world. And this is just a sickness that is in these men's heart. They do it to humble her and to remind her who is in charge. And God says that her husband is an accessory to the harm that they have caused his wife. The Lord says that this woman sleeps with men and women, that she is not a heterosexual female. She is, in fact, bisexual. And so he also said that people are worshiping her. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 3, you shall have no other God before me. And so now we come to, hopefully, very short visions. Verse. Most of the time, they defile unending lines of boys and girls who want to sing and want to be in movies. All those children in the Mickey Mouse Club, the Justin Biebers of the world, the latecomers, he was a latecomer, but the Ushers of the world, and the Britney Spearses of the world, and the J.C. Chavezes, and the Christina Aguileras, all these young people pass through the beds of filthy people like Madonna, like Jay-Z, and like Diddy. And so these people, because now you just heard in the previous prophecy that idols shall begin to totter, idols shall begin to shake a little bit as God is getting ready to bring forth their final judgment. So now this is how you're starting to see information leaking out to the press. And therefore, I strongly constrain the Christian church, do not dare try to silence God when God is getting in the middle of these things. Do not dare try to make God like you. I'm saying this to the Christian church everywhere, because all you want to be is in the house of the Lord, gazing upon his beauty and acting like we are in heaven already, and you cannot hear the screams of the children who are being sodomized in the country that you come from. So you do that. He's going to leave you in the church playing fake Christianity, and he's going to go outside to where the blood is flowing, to where the covenants are happening, to where the demonic contracts are being signed, to where the souls are being pulverized. And he's going to take it from there. He's going to find people who are serious. He's going to find people who are not starstruck. He's going to find people who are actually carrying the power of the gospel within them to preach to another tortured soul. Doesn't matter how much money a soul has. Do you know you can have $60 billion, and if you're going to hell, you're going to hell, minus the Visa card. If God judges you with cancer, as he did the CEO of Apple, all the money of all the phones you bought in your life did not save Steve Jobs. He threw every penny he could at that cancer, and on it came until it won. It is scary when we live in a time where we see things happening in front of us, but we're not sober-minded to actually know, excuse me please, what we're looking at. It is very, very scary, and it is not advisable for anyone who calls themselves a Christian to try and shut God out of the place where the most action is happening. America is a place where people's lives are being lost every day in the halls of the rich and famous. The rich and famous, sometimes the cruelty that they do is because if they don't do it, they're next. Sometimes the cruelty that the elites do is because they know they either give up a chicken or they become the chicken. You give up a turkey or you become the turkey. You pick. You pick. And so God is the one in the hearts of those who, yes, have committed human trafficking. Yes, the prophecies that I did earlier said that Beyonce and her husband have been in the room when children have been harmed. What does that tell you? Do you think that they were in a room when somebody slapped the child and said, bad child, and the child said, oh no? Do you think that that is what the word harm to a child means? Remember, this is the same channel that tells you that they're keeping children in underground bunkers and testing them for all kinds of gifts that they have. Keeping them unclothed, barely fed, no sunlight. They look like little big bald-headed aliens down there. Sober children, constantly tested and tested and tested. Do you think that perhaps I mean medium harm, minimal harm, sprinkles of harm? It's heinous things that happen to children, and the celebrities are right there. They participate or they watch. They participate by watching, and then they get on Twitter and they talk about it in code. And then you come and give 10,000 likes on something that is saying that we ate a baby yesterday. And so for God's own reasons, God is acknowledging that this man, it's just like sheeps. They're just going like this. Requests are just going. And then if you are the kind of person and you're saying, oh, I don't know what to pray. What? You mean because you don't know what to pray, you're just not going to get into that double dutch and start jumping and figuring it out as you jump? You're going to sit there because, no, it's better to jump in and tangle the ropes. It's better to jump in there when those waves are going and just saying, well, I'll figure it out as I go, but I'm going to pray something, because there's no way that God is going to get a blank application card from me. That's serious Christians, by the way. There's all formats of Christians. This blog is just for the serious ones, and it's also for the non-serious who are looking to shed that persona and become serious. So I'm going to post this one, and then I will carry on with Dreams Part 2. I've just shared with you something that is applicable to what a lot of people are going through. If you're not going through this right now, it is very likely that it's coming up, because nobody's going into 2025 peaceful. I don't care who you are. No one is going into the year 2025 peaceful, because 2025, you heard the Lord say this in 2023 at the end of the year, that 2025 is known as the year when the wheels fall off. Tumult, upset, otherwise known as what we've never seen before. What we've never seen before. The instability, the upset, things like that. You have reached the end of an era. You have reached the year of no safety, no protection, no warning. 2025, I'm coming for you, America. I will bend you to my will, I will bend you to my will by the things you suffer. And the end result will be like a pretzel going through the twisting process to end up in its final shape. I am through with talking to you to no avail. I am through with warning you, through with castigating you like a stubborn child who will not listen to reason or warning anymore. I'm going to show you what I mean when I say the wages of sin is death. I'm going to show you that I am the Lord. This is the word of the Lord. Yah says also that America has come to the end of an era. I've been speaking about how the Lord says that the natural disasters will start to take on the kind of flavor of other countries. His hand has been here on America. We could have the worst storm and it will tell us 2 people died. It will tell us 4 people lost their lives. And now for the first time, the government is hiding the toll, trying to tell us it's 50, 60. And yet other people are confirming, no, we've already packed up the first 500 body bags and thousands of people are missing. When you hear thousands of people are missing, how can you in good faith keep telling people that it's only 90 people who have died? Where do you factor in the 1,000 missing people? Where do you think they are? Do you think they're playing peekaboo in the forest, hiding and saying it'll be so fun when FEMA finally comes to get me a week later, then I'll jump out and I'll say surprise? When you hear thousands missing, where do you think we're going with the death toll? You can see the dishonesty for your government, for yourself. Finally, it's no longer 2019. You can see it now. As I told you, the prophecies of this blog will be on the news. Now I'm not here. I'm sometimes gone for days. And the news is telling you what I was telling you in my little bedroom in 2019. So 2025, God says America is going to be meeting him face to face, and he's going to crush and bend her like a pretzel because he's done talking to this country to no avail. You talk to someone to avail, they will correct their behavior. You speak to someone and there's avail. You talk to them and they will self-correct. You berate them and they will say, you know what, you're right. But when you're talking to someone to no avail and they're talking over you, they're talking back to you, they're ignoring you, they're laughing and they're mocking and belittling you. And I'm speaking about the Lord. The things you do to me are the things you're doing unto the one who sent me. Even Jesus said that he had one who had sent him. So it's all feeding back to my supervisor. He says, I'm done talking to you to no avail. I'm done warning you, and I'm through castigating you. This is strong rebuke. People will come here and complain, oh, if her tone was different. If her tone was different, what? Then the 60 million children that have been killed in this country, not unalived, for that is the new, clean, sanitized way to speak of death, the ending of life. Death, in some cases, murder, in this case, abortion. If I change my tone, then what? The children are going to come back. The butchers of death would not have taken away 60 million functioning tax-paying humans from the available population over the last couple of decades since Roe versus Wade. If I change my tone, then what? The Vietnam War goes away. If I change my tone, then what? The greed and corruption will stop. How on earth do you want to be prophesied to of sin in dulcet tones with a velvet glove? Isn't that schizophrenia? And yet countless adults, grown people, as they're talking to me, I know they're older than me, sanctimonious to the bone, to stress my life. Oh, I can't get my friends to listen. Maybe it's your delivery. No, your friends are dead rot. You're the dull axe that has finally made it here to try and cling to some form of sense, and your friends are the dead rot that you keep making excuses for. You can't get a single seed to grow in that dead ground, so you keep wanting to come back and tell me, I think it's the seed, it's the ground, and it's also you, the sower, and you need to deal with that. Because other people come here and they flourish. Other people come here, and just like rice that's ready to be husked, as soon as my so-called rough hands get on them, all the fornication is gone, and they're like, I can't sleep with you anymore, Joey, until we get married. People have come here and course corrected their lives, but then other people think that they're too special and there needs to be a particular delivery for them to receive. I have a breaking news announcement. Don't receive. There's one message for all of us. In fact, some people are so dissonant that they actually think God says to me, my dear one, my leaf and my flower of softness, I come to you to speak to you now of how I will put California to the bottom of the sea. Celestial, could you wake up, please? I want to speak with you about the 9.5 or higher earthquake that will cause mass loss of life. I speak to you in this gentle manner because I don't want to stress you as you're sleeping, but when you go to them, change all of a sudden. There's great mental instability here. If you're a Christian, I strongly advise you to separate from it as soon as possible. There is nothing better for the end times than a clear head and the ability to deal with facts. If you find yourself dealing with facts, you will find yourself more stable. You will find yourself more at peace. Yes, God is telling us devastating things, but you will be like a magnet that is always able to point back to true north, which is Jesus Christ first, and I'll figure out the rest later. Don't be like these sanctimonious, self-righteous people who actually want to dictate to God how to judge them.
We all know, in Hollywood especially, with all the high profile celebrities, with all the sin that's going on around the city that the people are indulged in, all the satanic rituals that these celebrities get into, the Illuminati, all these things God is watching. It's a plague over the land. And Satan is really running around that place wild and free, creating destruction. And people are just falling right into the trap. With the recent fires in Los Angeles, California, like nothing ever seen before. It looked like some out of a doomsday movie that is going on right now in California, with all the victims being pushed out into the streets, out of their homes because their homes are burned to the ground. Is it God's wrath on the land for all the sinful nature of the people indulging and running and dancing with Satan? Has it finally come to a head? We all need to be watchful of the times. We are clearly living in the last days. There's no doubt about that. Hey, everyone has an opinion. Make sure you drop down in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about this video. See y'all next time.